Hi guys, can you see me right now? Hello everybody. Have people joined in? Hi everyone. Am I audible? Am I visible? Is there anyone around? Hi, good afternoon. Someone please reply in the chat box if you can see me, if you can hear me, so that I know I can start the class. I can see a couple of attendees over there. I think 89 if you have joined. Oopsie. 3, 2. Yeah. Hi guys, good evening. And yes, I just had a call with your class representative when I know that you guys are there. So you just had a marathon session. I had a word with Dr. Raghavendra also. He finished an entire lecture. And here we are again for another session on bleeding and coagulation disorders in children. Yes, the session was initially to be taken by Dr. Ashima. The topic was actually IMNCI, but because of some issues, she couldn't take her lecture today. So I am taking mine today, and she will be taking the other slot, which was initially scheduled for me. Okay, so I think we'll just start. And if there are any issues, just tell me, okay? So today's topic is bleeding and coagulation disorders in children. Yeah. So the scope of the seminar is an overview of hemostasis. Then we'll talk about the overview of disorders of coagulation. So which will include both coagulation factor deficiencies, and it will also consider thrombocytopenias and thrombophilic disorders. So disorders of increased bleeding as well as disorders of excessive coagulation. Okay. So causes of thrombocytopenia, causes of coagulation factor deficiencies. Then we'll talk of two diseases which are representative of thrombocytopenia, that is ITP, immune thrombocytopenia, which is one prototype disease cause of thrombocytopenia, and one coagulation factor deficiency disorder, that is hemophilia. Okay, so wake up, wake up. I know it's good. It's a lot of theory for you, but you guys have to listen. Okay, so this slide is about hemostasis. So whenever there is an injury in our body, there will be three processes that will be happening. Okay, so first you look at image A, then B, then C, and then D. Okay, so the first reaction that happens whenever there is injury is that there is vessel wall damage, blood vessel wall damage. Because of blood vessel wall damage, what will happen is there's this layer which is just beneath the endothelium of the blood vessel, which is the smooth muscle layer. It will go into contraction, so vasoconstriction is going to occur at that side. Moreover, what will happen is because of this vessel wall injury, certain factors will be released, one of them being von Willebrand factor. Okay, and this vessel wall injury is going to attract platelets towards itself. So via the von Willebrand factor, the platelets which have surface receptors GP1B, okay, surface receptors of the platelets via von Willebrand factor, they'll attach to the vessel wall. So the first step that happens is vasoconstriction. Secondly, platelets will start getting attracted towards the damaged vessel wall, and they're going to make a block over that area of injury. Okay, so this is platelet adhesion. Then what is going to happen is the second step, that is platelet activation. Because of the adhesion of the platelets to the vessel wall, they will have an internal activation of certain mechanisms, and that will lead to release of certain substances. This will ultimately lead to platelet aggregation. That is, more platelets are going to bind to each other too. So platelet aggregation occurs with the help of surface receptors on the platelets, which are glycoprotein 2B, 3A. Okay, so vasoconstriction occurs, then platelets adhere. Platelet adhesion occurs to the vessel wall via von Willebrand factor. Then platelet activation occurs where they release certain internal substances, and that is followed by platelet aggregation where the platelets stick to each other. All of this leads to primary hemostasis, that is stoppage of bleeding because of the formation of because of aggregation of platelets at the site of bleeding. At the same time, because of release of this von Willebrand factor and because of the release of tissue factor. So tissue factor, that is factor 3, it gets released at the site of injury, and it's going to activate your coagulation cascade. So all of you must have read about this coagulation cascade in physiology. You're going to go back and revise hemostasis chapter today, okay? From physiology also. So this coagulation cascade gets activated and it leads to the formation of fibrin. Now this fibrin, in conjunction with the aggregated platelets, form a strong blood clot, and that formation of a strengthened blood clot which stops bleeding is known as secondary hemostasis. So these are the three processes which are involved in hemostasis. Okay, now any problem which will cause derangement of the platelets in number or function, or it is going to cause derangement in the coagulation factors in their function, or it damages the vessel wall, smooth vessel, the vessel wall, which results in vasoconstriction. All three, any problem in any of these three factors is going to lead to an abnormal hemostasis, which was going to cause bleeding or coagulation disorder. So the key players in hemostasis are vascular endothelium, platelets, and coagulation factors. And defect in the number or function of any of these leads to a coagulation disorder. So now, what are the disorders of coagulation? You know about coagulation disorders in terms of bleeding disorders. Okay, so to enumerate, we have already said the three key players. Platelet disorders, so there will be thrombocytopenia or platelet function defects. Then the second bleeding disorder can be because of coagulation factor deficiencies. The classical example being hemophilia A. And the third can be vascular causes, which is because of abnormal vessel wall. So there are a couple of examples to this. Example Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or there can be vitamin C deficiency, which is important for collagen, you know, and collagen is an important part of the vessel wall. So bleeding disorders, subheadings, you'll have platelet disorders or coagulation factor deficiencies or vascular causes. And any of these disorders can be either congenital or they can be acquired. Okay, so this is one aspect of it. Now the other aspect of it is thrombophilic disorder. So thrombophilic disorders means excessive coagulation. Wherein what happens is that the blood clot, which should have restricted itself to the sites of injuries, it grows unabated and it grows to other sites where there is no injury. So there will be excessive blood clot formation, and that in itself is also a disease. Okay, so there can be certain inherited causes. So inherited causes can be protein C or protein S deficiency. Then there can be antithrombin 3 or factor 5 Leiden mutation or hyperhomocystinemia. These are all factors which stop excessive coagulation, excessive formation of the clot. Okay, so deficiency of any of these is going to lead to thrombophilia. Then thrombophilia can also be acquired. So all of you have also studied in pathology about the virtuous triads. So the three components of these triads which leads to excessive coagulation is stasis of blood flow. Second is hypercoagulability. So if the blood becomes too thick. And the third is endothelial injury. So all the acquired causes of thrombophilia are those which lead to defects in any one of these. Okay. For example, if you have a central venous catheter or surgery or trauma, there will be endothelial injury. So it's going to predispose to excessive coagulation. If you have dehydration or nephrotic syndrome, which is again associated with decreased intravascular volume, it is going to lead to stasis of blood flow because the intravascular volume is decreased. Or if you have something like CCHD, congenital cyanotic heart disease, where there is excessive hemoglobin production. So excessive RBCs are there, excessive RBC production. So it is there, because of the excessive RBCs, there is hypercoagulability. Okay, so acquired causes of thrombophilia are those which lead to a problem in any one of the aspects of the virtuous triad, and then there are inherited disorders. Okay, so disorders of coagulation are both bleeding disorders as well as thrombophilic disorders. But henceforth in this lecture, we're going to discuss about the bleeding disorders. Okay, so now from bleeding disorders again a repetition, three parts: either platelet number or function defect, or coagulation factor deficiencies, or vessel wall abnormality. Okay, so now we're going to first discuss about platelet disorders, and platelet disorders may be pericardial thrombocytopenia, that is decrease in the number of platelets. Now this slide is important. Okay, so what are the mechanisms of thrombocytopenia? We'll begin from bottom to top. Okay, so the first cause is pseudothrombocytopenia. That means thrombocytopenia is actually not present, but when you get the report from the machine, it shows thrombocytopenia. That happens because what we're using to measure the blood counts are a machine. That machine usually measures the size of the cell and accordingly gives the number. इतनी size के इतने cells हैं, that means these are platelets. इतने size के इतने cells हैं, that means that those are RBCs. And इतने size के इतने cells हैं, that means those are TLCs, that is leukocytes. Okay, so depending on the size, it gives the numbers of the respective blood factors. Okay, so now in pseudothrombocytopenia, what happens is that because of the EDTA that is present in the blood collection wire, the platelets clump together. So once they clump together, they become a larger diameter. Okay, and that is miscalculated as some other cell and not as a platelet. So it causes pseudothrombocytopenia. So what would be an easy way to rule out pseudothrombocytopenia? Very simple. If you think of it, you do a peripheral smear. You send a peripheral smear examination to the pathologist and he'll show on the slide, okay, there is clumping of platelets present. So it simply rules out thrombocytopenia. So therefore, in any child of coagulation and bleeding disorder, the first investigation that you send is CBC and a peripheral smear. Okay, so that peripheral smear is going to rule out thrombocytopenia. Okay. Now, second cause is peripheral platelet pooling. So what happens is that the platelets are being normally formed in the bone marrow, but when they reach the peripheral blood into the spleen, because the spleen is so enlarged and hyperactive, Because of several other causes, it leads to pooling of the platelets within the spleen. So within the peripheral blood, the platelet counts decrease, whereas they keep pooling within the spleen. So this is hypersplenism, and it can occur because of a couple of factors. Hypersplenism, by the way, by definition, is decrease in all cell counts, that is HB, TLC, as well as platelets, with bone marrow hyperplasia. Don't forget about the bone marrow hyperplasia. So bone marrow responses normal to hypersplenism. And so in this, all the causes of hypersplenism can come as causes of thrombocytopenia, like portal hypertension and Gaucher's disease. Now, the two more important causes of thrombocytopenia, which as hematologists we like to listen. Okay, one is increased platelet destruction. What is increased platelet destruction? That means that within the bone marrow, the platelets are being formed at a normal rate. But when they go to the peripheral blood, there are certain antibodies formed against those platelets because of some abnormal triggers. The mechanism why those antibodies are formed we'll discuss later, but because of certain antibodies that are formed in the peripheral blood, or because of certain mechanical factors like artificial cardiac walls, or because of excessive endothelial injury, the platelets get destroyed in the blood. So this is increased peripheral destruction. So classically in that situation, what will happen is that within the bone marrow, there will be normal or increased megakaryocytes, because the bone marrow is going to try to increase the production of platelets. Okay. The second is decreased platelet production. Decreased platelet production, why would it happen is that platelets are produced within the bone marrow. Okay, so megakaryocytes and megakaryocytes are the precursors of platelets. So within the bone marrow itself, there is some problem. Either the bone marrow has been infiltrated or it has been replaced by something, and therefore it is not being able to generate the normal platelets. So if in this, within the bone marrow itself, the platelet count will be, the platelet formation will be reduced. Okay, so the four mechanism: increased destruction in the blood. Second is decreased production within the bone marrow. Third is peripheral platelet collection in the spleen, and fourth is pseudothrombocytopenia. Okay, so now with this knowledge and background, you know that we are going to classify causes of thrombocytopenia, dwell on increased platelet destruction and decreased platelet production. Okay, so first focus your attention to the left of the slide, which is increased platelet destruction. Now, increased platelet destruction can be immune, wherein there are certain antibodies formed against the platelets, and those platelets are going to be coated by the antibodies, and then they will be destroyed by a couple of mechanisms. Second is non-immune thrombocytopenia, where the platelets are being destroyed in the blood itself, but because of mechanical injury or endothelial wall damage. For example, HUS, that is hemolytic uremic syndrome, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, where the platelets are being consumed in the thrombotic process, or DIC, that is disseminated intravascular coagulation, where the platelets are being consumed in the process of coagulation. Abnormal coagulation that is occurring, and the platelets are just getting consumed in that process. And cardiac prosthetic walls, where actually there is mechanical destruction of the platelets. When they hit that prosthetic wall, they get destroyed. Okay. Now, immune thrombocytopenia can be of two types. One is idiopathic, where we do not know what has caused the formation of those antibodies against the platelets. It could have been a past infection, it could have been some past viral illness that would have occurred, but we don't know the trigger. We don't know what that has caused. This category is known as immune thrombocytopenia, and this is the one disease that we're going to discuss later, because it's the commonest cause of thrombocytopenia in children between 2 to 7 years of age. Okay. Then there can be secondary immune thrombocytopenias, where you know where you have identified what has caused the immune thrombocytopenia. So there could be certain infections which are identified. For example, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, or HIV, or dengue and malaria. All of you know that in dengue thrombocytopenia occurs, right? In that critical phase, thrombocytopenia occurs. And hepatitis B, C, and HIV are important causes, because if thrombocytopenia is because of these infections, then the treatment is to treat these infections rather than chase the thrombocytopenia. Okay. Then there could be drug-induced. So drug-induced may valproate and penicillins can be there. There could be autoimmune diseases where thrombocytopenia can occur. For example, SLE. So an older girl around 16 years of age, and she develops thrombocytopenia and develops this mala, rash, or she had some painless oral ulcers, and you think of SLE. Okay, an older adolescent girl with all these features and photosensitivity, you should think of SLE, and in SLE, secondary thrombocytopenia can be present. Then you have neonatal immune thrombocytopenia. What is important to know is whether it is an primary immune thrombocytopenia or it is secondary, because in secondary cases, the treatment of immune thrombocytopenia is directed towards the underlying cause. If it is the drug, then you stop that drug. If it is an autoimmune disease, then you treat the SLE. Okay, if it is an infection, you treat the infection. But in primary ITP, your treatment will be on separate lines, which we'll discuss later. Okay, so these are causes of increased platelet destruction. Then you have decreased platelet production. So that can be because of marrow infiltration. So marrow infiltration can be because of benign causes like osteopetrosis and storage disorders like Gaucher's, or that can be a malignant infiltration like leukemia and lymphomas. Do not forget this, okay? It's very important cause. Leukemia and lymphomas are important causes of decreased platelet production. So leukemia begins in the bone marrow itself. So it's going to damage the platelets. Then the second cause can be suppression of megakaryocytes, where there are certain factors which are needed and there is a certain milieu which is needed for the maturation and progression of megakaryoplasts to megakaryocytes and then to platelets. So if these factors are deficient or if that milieu is changed because of infections or drugs, then the megakaryocytes gets suppressed. So an important cause is vitamin B12 and folic acid deficiency. Okay, so this can happen in our children, especially the severe acute malnutrition, where they concomitantly have a couple of these deficiency, and B12 specifically so in non-vegetarian population. Okay, so vitamin B12 and folic acid deficiency, and in such situations you usually see suppression of all the cell lines. Okay, then there could be infections, example EBV and HIV. There could be drugs like antidiabetics which suppress megakaryocytes. Then radiation can suppress megakaryocytes. Okay, and then there are certain genetic and metabolic syndromes. For example, thrombocytopenia absent radius. So the radius will be absent. And then there is CAMT, that is congenital amegakaryocytic thrombocytopenia. There are certain metabolic disorders like methylmalonic acidemia where there will be suppression of megakaryocytes. Okay, so causes of thrombocytopenia we've discussed till this slide. I hope you've not gone off to sleep. Stay awake. Okay. So the next slide is platelet function defects. Okay, bleeding disorders we discussed about thrombocytopenia. Then the second aspect of it is platelet function defects. Could be inherited. For example, Glanzmann's thrombocytopenia. So we read that glycoprotein 1B deficiency. What did glycoprotein 1B help? When the vessel wall is injured, it is glycoprotein 1B which helps the platelets attached to the vessel wall via the von Willebrand factor. Okay, so अगर ये deficient होगा तो platelets first step ही नहीं कर पाएंगी, adhesion ही नहीं होगा. ठीक है. Then there is Bernard-Soulier syndrome where there is glycoprotein 2B3A deficiency. So once platelet adhesion has occurred, there is activation and then there is aggregation. And aggregation occurs with the help of 2B3A. So aggregation means platelets stick to each other. Okay. So in Bernard-Soulier syndrome, this will be deficient. Then you have gray platelet syndrome and dense body deficiencies, which is deficiency in certain granules within the platelets. Okay. Then there could be acquired disorders which result in platelet function defects. This could be drug-induced. There could be chronic kidney disease and cardiopulmonary bypass. In chronic kidney disease, uremia leads to platelet function. So your platelet numbers would be normal in these cases, in all these diseases, but still the platelet function would be abnormal. And there are a couple of assays like Ristocytin assays which are used to identify platelet function defects. Okay. Then you have coagulation factor deficiency. So thrombocytopenia and platelet function defects done. Then you have coagulation factor deficiency. Coagulation factor deficiencies could be inherited disorders or they could be acquired disorders. Inherited disorders में hemophilia सबको पता होना चाहिए, ठीक है? Hemophilia A and B. So factor 8 and factor 9 deficiencies. And what are they involved in? They are involved in the intrinsic pathway of coagulation. So coagulation, you have to go back and read from physiology today. Okay, I've given you an overview, but you have to go back and read. Then you have von Willebrand disease, where there's von Willebrand deficiency. Then there could be specific factor deficiencies like factor 7 and factor 13, and there are afibrinogenemia. Okay, so basically all the factors which are involved in the coagulation cascade. If any of them is deficient, then it is going to lead a coagulation factor deficiency and therefore a bleeding disorder. Okay, and hemophilia A and B courtesy, they are the commonest. They find more mention. Okay, then there could be acquired disorders like liver disease. So liver, vitamin K, both of them are involved in the formation of factors 2, 7, 9 and 10. Okay, and 2, 7, 9, 10 कहाँ involved होंगे? 9 and 10 are intrinsic pathway. 7 is also intrinsic pathway, and तुम्हारा जो factor 2 है, that is the common pathway. So a deficiency of any of these factors will lead to coagulation abnormality. So liver disease, vitamin K deficiency, and warfarin is going to be an inhibitor of vitamin K only. So it's going to lead to the same thing. And DIC, because it leads to consumption of all the coagulation factors and platelets, ultimately predisposes to bleeding. Okay, so coagulation factor deficiency. Now we have just till now discussed about the causes of bleeding in a child. Okay, bleeding disorders में we have discussed about causes of bleeding in a child. Now how do we approach such child? अगर हमारे पास कोई बच्चा आता है तो हम क्या हिस्ट्री और क्या एग्जामिनेशन करेंगे? ठीक है, the next slide about that. So when you take a history, if there is a history of bleeding in a non-mobile child, what does a non-mobile child mean? Non-mobile child means कि जब बच्चे छोटे होते हैं, after 6 to 7 months of age, they're just barely learning to sit with support and they can't really crawl around it. ठीक है, तो इस स्टेज पे वो नॉन मोबाइल चाइल्ड है, मतलब वो जहाँ पे आपने बिठाया है वहीं बैठा रहेगा, है ना? अगर ऐसे बच्चे में बिना चोट लगे, बिना हिस्ट्री ऑफ ट्रॉमा की ब्लीडिंग हो रही है, then you should think of a congenital bleeding disorder. किसको ब्लीडिंग हुई कैसी है? तो मोबाइल ही नहीं है, या फिर there is personal history of recurrent unprovoked bleeding. अगर कोई बड़ा बच्चा भी आता है और वो मदर बोलती है कि इसको बार बार ब्लीडिंग हो जाती है, गम से ब्लीडिंग हो जाती है, कभी कभी इसके स्किन पे ब्रूसेस बन जाते हैं, और ऐसा नहीं है कि बहुत कोई चोट लग रही है. अब आपको ये चीज ध्यान रखनी है, whenever children are there, they're prone to fall and they're going to get hurt and they're going to have bleeds. Okay, so you have to be cautious in your history taking कि उसको नॉर्मल चोट लगने के बाद इतनी ब्लीडिंग हुई है कि हल्की सी चोट लगी और उसको ब्लीडिंग हो गई, है ना? कि अगर कोई आ रहा है सपोज आईसी ब्लीड के साथ, है ना, वो गिरा है पहली मंजिल से, तब तो आप सोचते हो कि अरे फर्स्ट फ्लोर से वो नीचे गिरा, ऑब्वियसली ही मस्ट हैव गॉट अ सिग्निफिकेंट ट्रॉमा, आईसी ब्लीड इज प्रोपोर्शनेट. मगर अगर वो बोले कि वो तो ये छोटा ये फ्लोर स्टूल था, फ्लोर स्टूल से नीचे गिरा और उसके बाद आईसी ब्लीड हो गई, ऑब्वियसली दैट्स डिस्प्रोपोर्शनेट, है ना? सो यू हैव टू ask that history carefully कि कितना ट्रॉमा लगने के बाद कितना ब्लीड हुआ. अगर आपको सिग्निफिकेंट ब्लीडिंग लग रहा है या अनप्रोवोक्ड है, बिना चोट लगे ब्लीडिंग हो रहा है, that should raise a concern. Okay, then in adolescent girls and later on also, अगर heavy menstrual bleeding हो रही है, then you should think कितना heavy bleeding हो रहा है, is there an underlying bleeding disorder, especially von Willebrand factor deficiencies are often present like this, menstrual bleeding extra हो रही है. पर इसके अंदर आपको क्या सोचना पड़ेगा? What is important to know is whenever females attain their menarche, the initially 1 to 2 years, especially the first 1 year, can be such where there can be days of excessive bleeding. Okay, excessive menstrual bleeding can be normal in a female who has just attained menarche. So keep that in mind also. Okay. Then if you have prolonged bleeding after a surgical or procedural intervention or trauma, तो चोट लगी लेकिन जरूरत से ज्यादा देर तक ब्लीडिंग होती रही और सर्जरी हुई, जैसे कई बच्चों को क्या होता है सर्कमसिजन करते हैं या फिर सम अदर टूथ एक्सट्रैक्शन फॉर सम रीजन करना पड़ा, है ना, या फिर आपके कहीं ब्लेड से चोट लग गई और ब्लीडिंग बंद ही नहीं हो रही है, नॉर्मल बच्चे की 1 से 3 मिनट में बंद हो गई, इसकी चली जा रही है 10 मिनट में, तो आपको सोचना पड़ेगा इज देयर अ ब्लीडिंग डिसऑर्डर दैट वी आर मिसिंग, है ना? तो फाइनली फैमिली हिस्ट्री ऑफ ब्लीडिंग, अगर आपको ऐसी फैमिली हिस्ट्री मिल रही है जहाँ पे सिर्फ मेल्स ही मेल्स इफेक्ट हो रहे हैं, तो आप क्या सोचोगे? दैट कैन बी एन X-linked disorder. And once you think of an X-linked disorder, one coagulation factor deficiency that should come to your mind is hemophilia A. Okay, so that's an X-linked disorder. फिर और क्या हो सकता है, अगर आपके पास कोई न्यूबॉर्न आया है और उसकी अम्बिलिकल कॉर्ड से ब्लीडिंग नहीं रुक रही है, इवन आफ्टर थर्ड फोर्थ डे ब्लीडिंग चली जा रही है, then you should think of a congenital bleeding disorder, or you have sampled the newborn for some reason. For example, आपने newborn screening के लिए उसे heel prick किया and the bleeding is not stopping and it is prolonged, you should think of a congenital bleeding disorder. या फिर अगर कोई छोटू बच्चा पैदा हुआ है and he has caput subsidiarium or cephalhematoma, but there's no history of birth trauma, उन्होंने बोला ये तो normal vaginal delivery थी, there was no forceps, there was no difficult delivery, there was no use of any force during delivery, yet the child has a big caput subsidiarium or cephalhematoma, it should raise concern. Or if a child has IC bleed in a term baby, okay, preterms में आपका because of the preterm only they are predisposed to IC bleed, but अगर term बच्चे में without any history of difficult delivery IC bleed हो गया है, you should think of a congenital bleeding disorder. अब इसके अंदर भी catch है, IC bleed in a newborn can also occur because of vitamin K deficiency. So आपको पता है हर इंस्टीट्यूट में एट बर्थ बोला जाता है कि आप विटामिन के का शॉट दो, बच्चा जब पैदा होता है ना तो उसे एक BCG लगाते हैं, हेपेटाइटिस बी लगाते हैं, विटामिन के लगाते हैं. ओके, सो दैट यू शुड बी aware of that not just a congenital bleeding disorder, these children also may have vitamin K deficiency. You should ask कि ऐसा था कि इसको जन्म पे vitamin K का इंजेक्शन लगा था और नहीं पता, तो बोले कि नहीं पता था, but it should be in your mind because vitamin K deficiency से क्या bleed होती है, hemorrhagic disease of the newborn. So VKDB, vitamin K dependent bleeding कह रहा हूँ सर. Okay, so that's a differential. Now the last point, अगर किसी को circumcision site पे prolonged bleeding हो रही है तो then you also should think of congenital bleeding disorder. So these are pointed towards congenital bleeding disorders. What else can you see in examination? अब ये बच्चा देखो आप, this child इसका radius बिल्कुल absent है, इसको साथ में thrombocytopenia भी है, हमने ये एक्सरे किया, यहाँ देखो आपको आलना दिख रहा है but there is no radius है ना, so radius is present towards the thumb side, तो ये thumb की side की bone गायब है. Okay, so look carefully for signs of dysmorphism in a child with a suspected bleeding disorder. So what would this be? This is the thrombocytopenia absent radius syndrome. Okay, then you have another child, इसको देखो सारा eczema हो रखा है ना, and he has history of ये पूरा उसके knees पे दोनों side eczema है. Then you look at the palm of the hand, यहाँ पे भी उसको eczema हो रखा है. He has platelets, he has small platelets on the peripheral sphere, and he gets history of repeated infections. You should think of Viscott-Aldrich syndrome. So I'm not trying to emphasize that you should know only the rarer things, but what I'm trying to emphasize is you should do a careful physical examination because उन्हीं से आपको clues मिलेगा as to what the diagnosis can be. Okay. Then what can be the pointers towards acquired bleeding disorders? Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? Not bored? You're not bored? You guys are there? There with me? Awake? Studying? Yes? Okay, great. Not bored. Okay, great. I know it's a longish session, yeah. It's a real long session for you guys. Okay, but yeah, have some sips of water. मजे आ रहे हैं. Okay, great. It's funny to read such comments. ठीक है, अच्छा चलो अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. ठीक है, now you have acquired bleeding disorders. ठीक है, so आप हिस्ट्री लेते हैं acquired bleeding disorders. congenital कर लिए, अब कोई बड़ा बच्चा आया, उसको ऐसे कुछ पहले कभी ब्लीडिंग नहीं था, लेकिन आपने हिस्ट्री ली उसकी मेडिकेशंस की हिस्ट्री जरूर लेनी है ना. वो बोलता है मुझे इतना सिर दर्द होता है, मम्मी मुझे रोज एस्पिरिन खिला देती है. एस्पिरिन कैन लीड टू थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया है ना. कई बार क्या होता है, आपको वो हिस्ट्री नहीं देंगे कि मेडिकेशंस की कौन सी हिस्ट्री, कौन से मेडिकेशंस खा रहे होंगे, वो ऑफ लेवल आपके आयुर्वेदिक मेडिकेशंस खा रहे होंगे या सम अदर मेडिकेशंस व्हिच यू आप उनको मेडिसिन में गिनते ही नहीं, वो लोग ही नहीं गिनते हैं उन्हें है ना. But you have to ask for those non-prescription supplements because you don't know उसका component क्या है, and they may actually be leading to thrombocytopenia. So that is important. Then you have history of radiation exposure. So an older child comes and he says कि इसको bleeding हो रहा है, and then you ask कि अच्छा इसको तो अभी कैंसर का ऑस्टियोसार्कोमा का ट्रीटमेंट चल रहा है, इसको रेडिएशन मिला है. सो आफ्टर रेडिएशन बिकॉज द बोन मैरो इज द साइट ऑफ प्लेटलेट प्रोडक्शन, वहां पे मेगापैलमेसिस सप्रेस हो गया, सो उसलिए ब्लीडिंग हो गई. देन मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली कोई बच्चा आया, वो बोल रहा है अभी से 5 दिन से फीवर था, अभी 2 दिन से फीवर बंद हो गया, मम्मी बोल रही है ना. 7-year-old मेल चाइल्ड आया हमारे पास, 5 दिन से फीवर था उसे, अभी 3 दिन से फीवर बन गया है. बहुत तेज फीवर था उसे, शुरू में पूरा ना लाल लाल शरीर पे उसके रैशेस भी आ गए थे, पर वो छूने में महसूस नहीं होते थे. और अभी 2 दिन से इसका मसूड़ों में से खून निकल रहा है. क्या सोचोगे, उसे फीवर अभी जस्ट बंद हुआ है और उसके मसूड़ों से यू थिंक ऑफ डेंगू, स्पेशली इन द क्लासिकल सीजन. ठीक है, और क्या है, फीवर चले ही जा रहा है और फीवर पहले से भी खराब हो गया और इसकी ब्लीडिंग स्टार्ट हो रही है और इसका सेंसोरिया बात भी ढंग से नहीं कर पा रहा है, उल्टी आ रही है, हमें बहुत डर लग रहा है इसे क्या हो गया है, बच्चा होश गंवा रहा है एकदम से. You think of malaria, cerebral malaria हो गया, साथ में thrombocytopenia. So active infections you should think of first. कि कोई बच्चा बहुत sick हो रहा है, तब तो आप DIC sepsis वाली स्टेज पे सोचोगे. कम sick है, you will still think of malaria, dengue and chikungunya as possible. Even enteric fever for that matter can lead to thrombocytopenia. ठीक है, फिर क्या है, कोई लंबी हिस्ट्री के साथ आ रहा है, 10 साल का बच्चा है, 12 साल का बच्चा है, इसको पिछले 1-2 बार बीच में खून चढ़ा था, खून की कमी थी, और अब इसको जो है पिछले 2 साल से बार बार इन्फेक्शन हुए जा रहा है, मुंह में दाने आ रहे हैं, है ना. तो क्या सोचोगे, और अब प्लेटलेट भी कम हो रहे हैं. यू कैन थिंक ऑफ रेकरेंट इन्फेक्शन हुआ, बीटी की हिस्ट्री थी, आइदर हेपेटाइटिस बी और HCV और HIV. वो ब्लड जो हमारा बाहर किसी लोकल दुकान से ब्लड लोकल प्राइवेट प्रैक्टिशनर से लगा दिया, उनकी नीडल्स हमने नहीं देखी कि कैसी यूज कर रहे हैं वो, whether they're using the fresh needles or not. And बच्चे को उसके बाद से he is possibly acquired HIV, HCV और HPV, या फिर और इन तीनों situations में आपका thrombocytopenia आता है. So you should ask for history of blood transfusions or recurrent infections in the past which can happen in HIV. Then history of CKD, CLD और कोई भी chronic disease, especially CKD, CLD, cardiac surgery क्यों important है. CKD में क्या है, उसका यूरेमिया होगा, यूरेमिया रिलेटेड प्लेटलेट डिस्फंक्शन हो जाएगा, so they will have increased tendency of bleeding. कार्डियक सर्जरी में क्या है, अगर उसका प्रोस्थेटिक कार्डियक वॉल्व है तो प्लेटलेट डिस्ट्रक्शन हो सकता है. क्रॉनिक लिवर डिजीज में क्या है, मैं बताया था 2, 7, 9, 10 जो फैक्टर्स हैं वो बनने बंद हो जाते हैं. ठीक है, तो आपका इनफैक्ट इसीलिए CLD की ट्रीटमेंट में आप 2, 7, 9, 10 सप्लीमेंट भी करते हो, है ना. तो आपका 2, 7, 9, 10 डेफिशिएंसी हो गई, इसलिए उनको बार बार ब्लीडिंग होती है. और क्या हुआ, अगर हिस्ट्री ऑफ फोटो सेंसिटिविटी, जॉइंट पेन्स, डिस्निया, सीजर्स, तो मैं बताया टिपिकली एन एडोलेसेंट फीमेल फोटो सेंसिटिविटी आ रही है, तो आप ऐसे नहीं सोचोगे. और क्या सोचोगे, जो मेरा सब्जेक्ट है बेसिकली ऑन्कोलॉजी, अगर वेट लॉस है, एनोरेक्सिया है, लिम्फोडेनोपैथी है या हेपेटोस्प्लीनोमेगाली है ना, तो आप क्या सोचोगे, यू शुड थिंक ऑफ ल्यूकेमियाज एंड लिम्फोमास इन चिल्ड्रन एंड दीज कैन ऑफ कोर्स लीड टू थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया. सो अब ये पिक्चर्स देखो. तो ये वो लड़की है जिसको ये मैलार रैश है. ठीक है, फोटो सेंसिटिविटी है, ओरल अल्सर्स है, थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया, शी इज एन एक्सएलई. ये देखो, ये बच्चा देखो, ये 10 साल का लड़का है, इसको देखो दोनों साइड सर्वाइकल लिम्फ नोड्स एनलार्जिंग है ना, दिस इज सर्वाइकल लिम्फोडेनोपैथी. सो इसको एग्जामिन किया, इसका हेपेटोस्प्लीनोमेगाली था, इसका बोन मैरो करा तो इसका ल्यूकेमिया आया, पेरिफेरल्स में हमें थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया था और TLC रेस था. ठीक है, so this can be a cause of, और इसका इनफैक्ट आप लिप्स भी देखो, आपको पैलर नजर आ रहा है ना, these lips are whiter than the usual, he has pallor too. Then you have this erythematous rash. बच्चा फीवर के साथ आया और उसको शुरू में ऐसा रैश हुआ, एंड देन day 4 of illness जब afebrile हो गया, इसका thrombocytopenia और bleeds आ गए. So classical case of dengue. Okay. So now what is the difference? अभी तक हमने chemical manifestations पढ़े, अब हम क्या पता लगा सकते हैं कि प्लेटलेट और कोगुलेशन डिसऑर्डर्स हिस्ट्री में अगर कोशिश करें कि कौन सा प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर और कोगुलेशन डिसऑर्डर कौन सा है. सो एक सिंपल सा तरीका है, जो प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स है ना, दे लीड टू सुपरफिशियल ब्लीड्स. ओके, सो आपका जो स्किन एंड म्यूकोजल ब्लीड्स होगा ना, स्पेशली एपिस्टैक्सिस हुआ या GIT से हुआ, एंड स्पेशली स्किन ब्लीड्स लाइक पेटिके, एकाइमोसिस, यू शुड थिंक ऑफ प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर. जब आप कोगुलेशन डिसऑर्डर सोचते हो ना, हीमोफिलिया A and B, उसके अंदर क्या है, मसल एंड लार्ज जॉइंट ब्लीड्स होती है. तो आपका बार बार बोलेगा कि नी में ब्लीड हो गया है ना, एंकल में ब्लीड हो गया, तो सॉफ्ट टिश्यू लार्ज ब्लीड्स होते हैं उसके अंदर. ठीक है, पेटिके आर कॉमनर इन प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स. एकाइमोसिस जो है आपके, अगर सुपरफिशियल ब्लीड अगर थोड़ा आपका सबक्यूटेनियस टिश्यू में हुआ, प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स में पेटिकिया ज्यादा होते हैं, एकाइमोसिस छोटे और सुपरफिशियल होते हैं। लेकिन अगर आप कोगुलेशन डिसऑर्डर्स के एकाइमोसिस बोलो तो वो ज्यादा बड़े होते हैं और वो डीपर सीटेड होते हैं। ओके, जॉइंट एंड मसल ब्लीड्स कोगुलेशन डिसऑर्डर्स में ज्यादा होगा। और क्या होगा, प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स में ना ब्लीडिंग माइनर ट्रॉमा के बाद ज्यादा दिखती है। मेजर ट्रॉमा, मेजर सर्जरी में क्या होगा, जो आपका प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स है, बिकॉज वो प्राइमरी हीमोस्टैसिस करते हैं, राइट। सो आपकी प्लेटलेट डिसऑर्डर्स की वजह से ब्लीडिंग जो होगी ना इमीडिएटली हो जाएगी, बिकॉज दैट्स द फर्स्ट स्टेप दैट इज इन्वॉल्व्ड, और माइल्ड हो। पर अगर आपको कोगुलेशन फैक्टर डेफिशिएंसीज है, उसका डिलेड ब्लीडिंग हो सकता है ऑलमोस्ट 1 to 2 days, क्योंकि इनिशियली तो प्लेटलेट कवर कर लेगा, लेकिन जब कोगुलेशन से क्लॉट पक्का होना था वो चीज तो हुई नहीं, that didn't happen. So there will be delayed bleed and it can be severe. Okay, and the prototypical examples are ITP and hemophilia, which I'm going to describe later. Okay, so if a child with bleeding disorder comes, what investigations are you going to order? The first is a CBC and a peripheral smear. So ये तो basic है. If you have a CBC, you know कि platelets कम है, that is thrombocytopenia. Now peripheral smear क्यों करना है? To rule out pseudothrombocytopenia. So there is no pseudothrombocytopenia peripheral smear mein. If there is pseudothrombocytopenia, you're going to see platelet clumps. Then peripheral smear additionally is going to give you more information. How? If the platelets are smaller in size, it will give you clue to certain etiologies. For example, Wiskott-Aldrich syndrome. If the platelets are larger in size as compared to the usual, it is going to tell you that there is probably peripheral destruction of platelets that is happening. Why? Because the bone marrow, it is going in overdrive. Peripheral platelet production, platelet destruction हुए जा रहा है blood में. So bone marrow platelet फटाफट बना रहा है और टाइम से पहले रिलीज कर दे रहा है blood में. तो एक तरीके से precursors रिलीज हो रहे हैं, you know, just like what happens in anemia. Hemolytic anemia में what happens? The platelet, the RBCs are getting destroyed and retics start getting circulated in the blood. है ना, and the retic count increases. Similarly in platelets, what happens? Platelet destruction peripheral हो रहा है तो क्या है, bone marrow platelets पहले release कर देगा, and when they are released before time, they are larger in size. So अगर आपको larger platelets दिख रहे हैं, then you should think in terms of peripheral destruction of the platelets. और क्या आइडिया मिलेगा आपने एक बार पेरिफेरल्स में, क्या अगर कोई acute infection है, for example malarial parasite, आपको malarial parasite दिख जाएगा, है ना, so there will be clues. CBC क्या क्लूज देगा? अपार्ट फ्रॉम थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया, आपको CBC कैन गिव क्लूज. अगर आपका इन्फेक्शन है तो आपका TLCs बड़ा होगा. अगर आपका ल्यूकीमियाज है, TLCs कैन बी सिग्निफिकेंटली रेज्ड विद अ लार्ज प्रोपोर्शन ऑफ लिम्फोसाइट्स और अबनॉर्मल ब्लास्ट. पेरिफेरल स्मेयर में और क्या दिख सकता है? अबनॉर्मल ब्लास्ट दिख सकते हैं. So there are a couple of things which will be sorted out on the CBC and peripheral smear only, and these are the basic प्राइम इन्वेस्टिगेशंस. और अगर आपका पेरिफेरल स्मेयर एंड CBC में थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया नहीं है, देन यू थिंक ऑफ कोगुलेशन फैक्टर. ओके, सॉरी. सो आल्सो यू डू अ PTINR एंड अ APTT. ना ये बीच में जो ब्लीडिंग टाइम एंड क्लॉटिंग टाइम आया ना, ये थोड़े ऑब्सोलीट हो गए हैं अभी, बिकॉज दे आर ना नॉन स्पेसिफिक. ओके, so what is more important is that you do a CBC, you do a peripheral smear, you do a PTINR. तो PT prolonged होगा तो extrinsic pathway defect है, specifically factor 7 याद रखना है, ठीक है. APTT prolonged है तो intrinsic pathway defect है तो factor 8 और 9, ठीक है. And then you can do specific factor assay and platelet function test. Okay, तो ये आपके basic test in a bleeding child है. Okay, so अब ये देखो आपका यहाँ पे, this is on the left side, this is a peripheral smear. So ये सारी these are all RBCs. Okay, and then you see a neutrophil, and where is the arrow? The arrow is on this area. So these individual dots are actually individual platelets. पर यहाँ पे क्या हुआ है, ये platelet clump बन गया है. Okay, so this is a platelet clump. तो अब जब मशीन उसे measure करेगी ना, so this is going to think that this is a single large cell. ठीक है, तो मिस काउंट करेगा और प्लेटलेट नंबर को तो काउंट ही नहीं करेगा ऐसे, है ना. सो सूडोथ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया में दिस इज व्हाट हैपेंस. एंड पेरिफेरल स्मेयर में जब कोई पैथोलॉजिस्ट देखेगा तो वो फट से बता देगा दिस इज सूडोथ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया. ओके, नाउ लुक एट दिस पिक्चर ऑन दिस राइट. दीस आर RBCs. ये देखो यहाँ पे आपको इंडिविजुअल प्लेटलेट्स दिख रहे हैं ना, ये छोटे छोटे जो है ना, ये नॉर्मल प्लेटलेट्स है. लेकिन अब ये जो लाल एरो दिख रही है ना, रेड एरो, This is a giant platelet. अब size का difference देखो, this is a normal platelet, this is a giant platelet, है ना? So आपका ITP में prematurely release हो जाता है platelets and this is larger in size. But there are certain diseases जिसके अंदर इससे भी बड़े platelets होते हैं और उनका number बहुत ज्यादा होता है, ठीक है? Those are a separate group of disease. MYH9 diseases होता है, उनमें ITP से कहीं ज्यादा number और ज्यादा साइज में जॉइंट प्लेटलेट्स होते हैं, ठीक है? तो वो चीज अलग है. आप कोई भी एक्सपीरियंस पैथोलॉजिस्ट होगा, by looking at a peripheral smear he'll say हाँ there is some component of peripheral destruction that is occurring and this looks more like ITP. Okay, so a snapshot view of what you do in a child with bleeding. Okay, first you do a history and an examination, you do a platelet count. If there is thrombocytopenia, then you have to rule out all causes of thrombocytopenia as discussed earlier. अभी just हमने सारा कुछ कोई डिस्कस किया, ठीक है? अगर प्लेटलेट काउंट नॉर्मल है तो अब आपके दिमाग में क्या आएगा? दो चीजें आएंगी, या तो प्लेटलेट फंक्शन डिफेक्ट है या फिर आपका कोगुलेशन फैक्टर गड़बड़ है ना? सो यू फर्स्ट रन अ कोगुलेशन फैक्टर ऐसे, ठीक है? सो आप पीटी एपीटीटी करोगे. अगर आपका एपीटीटी एंड पीटी दोनों abnormal है, that will happen in vitamin K deficiency, liver dysfunction and DIC. अगर आपका एपीटीटी गड़बड़ है और पीटी नॉर्मल है, that means intrinsic pathway defect. तो 8 and 9 deficiencies, then we will go towards hemophilia A and B. अगर एपीटीटी नॉर्मल है and abnormal पीटी है, तो you think of extrinsic pathway defect and that is factor 7 deficiency. ठीक है? बहुत ही सिंपल स्लाइड है, इसको मैं बोल रही हूँ तो शायद टफ लगे, लेकिन जब आप खुद बैठ के इसे लिखोगे ना, इट्स अ वेरी वेरी सिंपलिस्टिक स्लाइड, ठीक है? तो हम प्लेटलेट फंक्शन डिफेक्ट्स के बारे में तो इसमें बात ही नहीं कर रहे. आई एम सिंपली टॉकिंग ऑफ थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया एंड कोगुलेशन फैक्टर डेफिशिएंसीज. उसके अंदर भी व्हाट आई वांट यू टू डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन इज हेमोफिलिया ए एंड बी में क्या होगा, फैक्टर 7 डेफिशिएंसी में क्या होगा, और बाकी विटामिन के डेफिशिएंसी, लिवर फंक्शन एंड डिसफंक्शन एंड डीआईसी में तो दोनों ही अबनॉर्मल है, ठीक है? बिकॉज उसमें 2 7 9 10 तो 2 तो आपका कॉमन आ गया ना. एक बार कॉमन वाला आ गया तो दोनों इंट्रिंसिक एंड एक्सट्रिंसिक वाले जो पीटी एपीटी दोनों गड़बड़ आएंगे, ठीक है? I'll move ahead from the slide. So till now we have done the history, examination, investigations of a child who presents with bleeding. Now I discuss two specific disorders, that is ITP and hemophilia. Okay, so पहले मैं आपको ब्रीफ में बता देती हूँ ITP before running through the slides. ठीक है? ITP क्या है? Immune thrombocytopenic purpura. आजकल ना इसे सिर्फ immune thrombocytopenia कहते हैं, purpura टर्म हटा दिया है, ठीक है? I should have removed it from my slide also. इम्यून जो बोलते हैं क्योंकि इसके अंदर क्या है, प्लेटलेट्स के अगेंस्ट जो प्लेटलेट्स के सरफेस रिसेप्टर्स है ना, मोस्ट कॉमनली जो 2B3A वाली है, उसके अगेंस्ट एंटीबॉडीज बन जाते हैं. अब वो ट्रिगर्स बहुत सारे हो सकते हैं, वो जो मैंने आपको बताए थे प्राइमरी एंड सेकेंडरी इम्यून थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपेनिया, बहुत सारे कॉजेस से एंटीबॉडीज बन जाती है. प्राइमरी में आपको पता नहीं है कि वो ट्रिगर क्या है एंटीबॉडी बनने का, सेकेंडरी में वो आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, ठीक है? So because of the formation of these antibodies, what will happen is that these abnormal antibodies, obviously these antibodies are abnormal. Q, no antibodies should act against your own body's platelets, right? So those are abnormal antibodies. तो आपका कहीं ना कहीं बॉडी में serotolerance खराब हो गया, ठीक है? So now these antibodies they will bind to the platelet surface receptors. Okay, now this antigen coated antibody बन गया platelet, है ना? So one major mechanism of destruction is that when these antibody coated platelets pass through the spleen, the splenic macrophages recognize them and they eat them up. So आपका thrombocytopenia, ठीक है? So this is the pathophysiology. Now this is the commonest bleeding disorder in children between 1 to 7 years of age. होता क्या है देखो, a mother will come and she'll say, okay, here this is my 4-year child and he was absolutely normal till yesterday afternoon. And then when he woke up in the morning, he had bruises all over his body. I don't know how those bruises appeared. Then you ask, अच्छा ये गिर तो नहीं गया था बेड से? नहीं doctor साहब, the bed is, we have a bed which is, you know, we have frames on both sides of the bed. We don't, we kept extra protection. He didn't fall off, he didn't cry. Then you ask, is there any history of fever? No, doctor साहब, there's no history of fever. He doesn't have a rash. He doesn't have any other bleedings. पहले कभी ब्लीडिंग हुई है? नहीं डॉक्टर साहब, there has been no such episode in the past. Then you ask, अच्छा 1 month 2-3 weeks back कुछ ऐसा था कि fever हुआ था. Mother says yes, I do think around 3 weeks back, you know, he had some mild infection, but उसमें तो कुछ problem हुई ही नहीं थी डॉक्टर साहब, वो तो 2-3 दिन में ठीक हो गया था. Then you start thinking, you know, कि कोई और आपकी फैमिली में किसी को ब्लीडिंग है? नहीं डॉक्टर साहब. इसको कोई ऐसा है, कोई और रैश आ रहा है, फोटो सेंसिटिविटी है, ओरल एल्सर्स है? नहीं डॉक्टर साहब. पहले बार-बार इन्फेक्शन तो नहीं हो जाते? नहीं डॉक्टर साहब. So the history you're getting is that there's an absolutely normal child and no problem whatsoever, and sudden onset of bleeding हो रही है, superficial bleeds है, ठीक है, skin में bruising आ रही है, कोई trauma की history नहीं है, and around 4 weeks back he had a mild viral infection which went unidentified. Okay, so this is the classical history of ITP. Okay, और सबसे अच्छी बात क्या है ITP में? In majority of the children, almost 3/4, 75% resolve spontaneously. खुद ही से ठीक हो जाएंगे over a period of 3 to 4 months. Problem पता क्या आती है? To leave them, parents को ये समझाना कि इसको treatment नहीं चाहिए, because when you do a CBC, he'll definitely have low platelets, and low platelets with all that bruising, और parent को बोलना कि इसको treatment की जरूरत नहीं है तो खुद ठीक हो जाएगा, that is the toughest part. So that is what ITP is in a nutshell. Now I'll go through the slides. So there's something called acute ITP. जब जब बच्चा diagnose होता है, up to 3 months of diagnosis, if the thrombocytopenia persists, it is known as acute ITP. If the thrombocytopenia persists beyond 3 months, but resolves before 12 months, it is known as persistent thrombocytopenia. If the thrombocytopenia persists even beyond 12 months of diagnosis, then it is called as chronic ITP, and it is this subgroup of children which is a problem, because it is the chronic ITPs which will probably go on to have a lifelong disease of on and off bleeds. Okay, so it is this part which is problematic. Pathogenesis I've already discussed. The one thing I would like to emphasize is that primarily it is an immune-mediated peripheral destruction of the platelets. How so? The megakaryocyte number in the bone marrow is increased. Okay. फिर एक छोटी सी बात आपको कंफ्यूज करने के लिए बोल देती हूँ. अभी lately there is a lot of literature which is showing that even within the bone marrow, in ITP, the platelet production is hampered. Okay. So the megakaryocyte number is increased, but it is not to the degree that it should have been increased. कि अगर आपके 20,000 प्लेटलेट हो गई तो आपका मेगाकैरोसाइट नंबर बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ जाना चाहिए था. ऐसा नहीं होता, वो बढ़ता है, नॉर्मल से ज्यादा होता है, लेकिन proportionate to the platelet destruction नहीं होता. That is because something is abnormal in the bone marrow also. Okay, so I mean, I thought I'll tell you because this is what is the latest, but don't get confused. Clinical features I've already told you. Important is to have a thorough history. So antecedent history of febrile illness usually आपको 50-60% बच्चों में मिल जाती है. Sudden spontaneous appearance of bruising and mucosal bleeds, prolonged bleeds with mild trauma, but you have to always rule out other possible causes of thrombocytopenia with history and examination. Investigation क्या करोगे आप? CBC करोगे, platelet count reduced. Peripheral smear करोगे, platelet count reduced, and the platelet size would be larger as they are younger. Okay, and of course you're going to rule out other things. Now what about bone marrow? Should you do a bone marrow or should you not? So in a classical case, जहाँ पे आपको classical history examination मिल रहा है, जहाँ आपको कोई शक नहीं आ रहा कि अच्छा, by the way, examination में in a case of ITP everything is normal barring those bruising sites, and up to 5 to 10% of children may have splenomegaly, and it will never be massive or moderate. It is going to be a mild splenomegaly, that too in almost only about 5 to 10% children. Otherwise, आपका examination बिल्कुल normal, no lymph nodes, no hepatomegaly, no rash, nothing whatsoever apart from the bleeding. So अगर ऐसा typical बच्चा मिलता है आपको, typical history, typical examination and typical CBC and peripheral smear, आपको bone marrow examination की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. Bone marrow aspirate is not required for the diagnosis of ITP. But if you have any doubts, the child has lymph nodes, or you think इसके बाकी cell lines भी depressed है, और आपको लग रहा है कि ये कहीं SLE तो नहीं है, आपको कुछ भी शक आ रहा है कि ये ITP के अलावा कोई और डिजीज हो सकती है, that is when you do a bone marrow and other tests to rule out other ominous etiologies of thrombocytopenia. Okay, so bone marrow aspirate is basically to rule out aplastic anemia and leukemia. Okay, it is actually not to diagnose ITP. Okay, investigations to rule out other etiologies based on what you find on the history and examination. So liver function test, kidney function test, or dengue, malaria, DIC workup depends on what you find in your history and clinical examination. Now, as far as treatment is concerned, your goal is not to chase the platelet count. कि platelet count बढ़ाना है हमें, इसका 1 लाख करना है, 50,000 करना है. That is not the goal. The goal is to minimize the risk of bleeding and to decrease the side effects of long-term treatment. तो आपके दो टाइप के ट्रीटमेंट करते हो. एक है acute ITP. Acute ITP है कि जब बच्चा ज्यादा ब्लीडिंग के साथ आ गया एंड आपको acutely bleed को रोकना है. So जब acute ITP भी है कि आज ही डायग्नोज हुआ है, मतलब newly diagnosed ITP है, there is no more mild bleeding, you can simply observe, but it is close observation, you know, watchful waiting. That means कि ऐसा नहीं है कि ऑब्जर्वेशन मतलब उसे रख दिया और अच्छा जी हफ्ते बाद आ रहा है, 2 हफ्ते बाद नहीं. आपको उसको 24 से 72 घंटे में you have to follow the child up in 24 to 72 hours. Okay, so you have to follow him up that there is no other problem that is arising, he is doing well, there is no fresh symptom, there is no fresh examination finding. So it is watchful waiting. Okay, close observation. It is not कि आपने इसे छोड़ दिया. Okay, अगर बच्चे को ब्लीडिंग हो रही है then there are 3 options: intravenous immunoglobulin, anti-D immunoglobulin and steroids. Okay, so इनकी doses आप बेटा घर जाके बुक से पढ़ सकते हो, but these are the 3 drugs which are used. अच्छा, for that matter आपको ये बता दूं कि what is the mechanism of action. Basically आपका जो है ना स्टेरॉइड्स का तो ये है कि आपका इम्यूनोसप्रेशन, तो जो एंटीबॉडी प्रोडक्शन है ना उसे ही बंद कर देगा. ठीक है, इंट्रावेनस इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन और एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन. एंटी-डी क्या करता है, आपका आरबीसीज को कोट कर लेता है. ठीक है, तो अब बॉडी में क्या हो गया, प्लेटलेट कोटेड विद एंटीबॉडीज भी हैं और आरबीसीज कोटेड विद एंटीबॉडी भी है. दो चीजें बन गई. अब ना उन दोनों में कंपटीशन हो जाता है, तो स्प्लीन इज कंफ्यूज कि मैं आरबीसीज को, सेल्स-लाइक मैक्रोफेजेस कंफ्यूज रहते हैं, आरबीसीज को खाऊं कि प्लेटलेट्स को खाऊं. तो बिकॉज आरबीसीज आर फार मोर इन नंबर, मोर आरबीसीज आर इन्वॉल्व्ड, तो प्लेटलेट स्पेयरिंग हो जाती है. दैट इज हाउ एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन. तो इसका प्रीरिक्विजिट क्या है फिर, पता है क्या, एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन यू कैन नॉट गिव टू एवरीबॉडी. अगर बच्चे को पहले से ही एनीमिया है तो आप उसे एंटी-डी, अगर उसका 10 से कम हीमोग्लोबिन है, यू कैन नॉट यूज एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन. दूसरा क्या है, अगर उसका RH नेगेटिव ब्लड ग्रुप है तो एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन कहां से यूज करो, क्योंकि तो एंटी-डी इम्यूनोग्लोबुलिन is going to bind that RH only, no, so it is going to be used only in RH positive children. ठीक है, तो जल्दी बता रही हूँ, but this is very interesting and you should know books पे लिखा हुआ है. ठीक है, I hope you guys are there with me. So I think you can skip this. ठीक है, and therapeutic options for chronic ITP में just remember the names of the drugs. So there are 3-4 things that we used. One is TPO receptor agonists like L-Trombovag and Romiflostin. These are used for chronic ITPs. ठीक है, acute ITP नहीं यूज होता है, chronic में यूज होता है. Then you have high dose steroids, certain immunosuppressive agents. इसमें remember rituximab and splenectomy, which is the last resort measure. मतलब it's the lastest measure that you should use. Try to avoid as far as possible. So आपका जो therapeutic options for chronic ITP में, इसमें in today's age and date, the most important are actually TPO receptor agonists, although they are costly, but they are the drugs which are most preferred these days. ठीक है, and the other important thing that I like to emphasize is the distinction of primary and secondary ITP is very important. Primary means that you have not identified an underlying cause. Secondary means you have identified underlying cause. So secondary ITP में आपका ट्रीटमेंट टारगेट ही अंडरलाइंग डिजीज पे होता है. तो हेपेटाइटिस बी है तो बी की ट्रीटमेंट करो, सी है तो सी की ट्रीटमेंट करो, HIV है तो ART दो. ठीक है, सो दैट इज SLE है तो SLE का ट्रीट करो. तो दैट इज हाउ इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट. जबकि प्राइमरी ITP में you give the treatment that I just mentioned to you. Okay, so I hope you're not confused till now. We'll go to hemophilia. Last 10 minutes. You guys are okay with me? Not bored, awake, not left. अपनी रिप्लाई आ रही हो ना कि मैं अपने आप से बात कर रही हूँ. ठीक है, at least 2 of you were there, so okay. Yeah, okay, great. Yes, let's finish this. Absolutely. Yeah. So last is hemophilia. So it is a commonest hereditary clotting deficiency. X-linked recessive disorder है, तो आपको पता है, as soon as it's an X-linked recessive disorder, it is going to be commoner in boys. Then you have hemophilia A and B, factor 8 and factor 9 deficiency, and in दोनों के clinical features from each other are indistinguishable, and clinical features क्या होते हैं depends on the degree of factor deficiency. So now the level of factor deficiency can be mild, moderate or severe. Mild means कि आपका factor level जो है 5 to 40% of expected है, ठीक है? So अगर मैं normal इंसान में 100% मानते हैं हम, so mild deficiency में 5 to 40% में होगा. Moderate deficiency means factor level उनका 1 to 5% of normal होगा, and severe में less than 1% of normal. So इनका sites of bleeds तीनों में same ही रहेगा, जो हम बोलते हैं ना deep seated bleeds and in the joints. लेकिन frequency and severity of bleed कम होगी. So mild deficiencies में होगा only after surgery or severe trauma they'll have bleedings. In moderate deficiency, bleeding symptoms occur after minor trauma. तो mild में severe trauma के बाद ही होता है, moderate में हल्के trauma से भी हो जाता है, severe deficiency में spontaneous हो जाता है. And severe deficiencies में you can also have large bleeds and life-threatening bleeds, especially intracranial bleeds. And अगर किसी को severe deficiency होता है ना, they usually present by 6 to 8 months of age. What is important to notice that if you leave a severely deficient child untreated on a prophylactic therapy, उसका over a period of time there will be frequent joint bleeds, and जब आपकी joints में frequently bleed होते हैं, they become damaged and there is no mobility left in them, range of movement as well as आपका जो joint fixity है that happens, so that is compromised, and these are known as Charcot joints. Okay. Diagnosis क्या है, हमने पहले ही पढ़ा था, prolonged APTT and normal PT will happen. Factor SC, but what is important is that this is a screening test. आपका APTT prolonged and PT normal है. Then जब आपको ऐसा मिलता है with a typical clinical history, then you do a factor assay which is diagnosis. So factor assay में वो measure ही factor levels करेंगे. Factor 8 और 9 जो respectively आप measure करोगे, that will help you confirm the diagnosis as well as help you classify कि mild, moderate या severe है. Now the second aspect of it is genetic testing. So genetic testing आप क्यों करते हो? उस बच्चे को तो फायदा नहीं है. आपने hemophiliia किसी में confirm कर लिया, in that particular child तो आप genetic testing करके कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा because you've already confirmed the diagnosis. But if in future the parents plan another child, in that particular pregnancy, in utero, उस बच्चे के लिए वही same gene test किया जाएगा जो इस affected बच्चे में गड़बड़ है. Understood? So in utero for the next pregnancy, parents can be given an idea that this child is affected, their current pregnancy is affected or not with that same genetic mutation. Okay, so that's why it is important, and it is important to do this genetic testing if the parents are planning another family. Okay, अब treatment क्या होगा, आपका acute bleed के अंदर आप RICE therapy देते हो. So you ask for rest, you give ice packing over the area of bleed, compression करते हो and elevate that particular leg. And of course, this is symptomatic management. You have to give a factor replacement therapy. So concentrates of factor 8 and 9 are available. अब आपका depending on the site of bleed, you target the factor levels. तो अगर किसी को joint bleed हुआ है, तो आपका target factor levels होगा 30% की 30% तक हमारा factor levels पहुंच जाए. अगर आपका IC bleed है, तो आपका target factor levels 80 to 100% होगा. So depending on your target factor levels, you decide the amount of factor that is given and the duration for which it has to be given. So there are formulas which are available. Even Ghai mentions that simple formula. You can go back and read that. But important is you have to identify the site of bleed, and depending on that site of bleed, target factor levels are defined for treating purposes. And उसी के हिसाब से होगा कि कितना amount of factor देना है, कितने दिनों तक देना है. ठीक है. Second is continuous primary prophylaxis. तो कोई acute bleed क्या है आपके साथ आया तो you will do all this, but In children with severe deficiency, even without bleeding, you have to replace factors because they're at high risk of spontaneous bleed, and to prevent sharp joints. Factor replacement is done prophylactically 2 to 3 times per week at the doses of 10 to 20 international units per kg. Okay, and there are other parameters to treatment of such children which may not appear important to you, but they are very, very important. And जब आप आंसर्स भी लिखते हो या वाइवा में बोलते हो जरूर ये चीजें बताओ, ठीक है? So parental counseling regarding injury prevention. So you have to tell them that try putting the child into those sports where the risk of injury is less. Now, so non-contact sports like walking and swimming. Now, second is that if the child does want to engage in such sports, then they have to wear all the protective gear that is available and with all precautions. It should be avoided, but अगर कुछ ऐसा other than all protective gear should be taken. ठीक है? Second is physiotherapy. So physiotherapy to prevent chronic joint disease. तो आपके जो भी joints में bleed है नहीं है, you have to keep doing physiotherapy. So guided physiotherapy has to be given. Third is concomitant drugs. So अगर किसी को coagulation factor deficiency है, you should avoid those drugs which can perpetuate that coagulation factor deficiency or which also cause a concomitant thrombocytopenia. So NSAIDs and aspirin is to be avoided. तो इनके जो painful joints है, we prefer giving paracetamol. Then जो immunizations है इनकी routine वो इनको मिलनी चाहिए, but a couple of times instead of the intramuscular route, we use the subcutaneous route so that there is no muscle bleed that happens. And lastly, genetic counseling. So the importance of genetic counseling I've already told you. Okay. So that brings us to the end of this lecture. Okay. If you guys have any doubts, then you can just tell me. Or you can just yeah, so we finished with this you know, so if you guys have any doubts, then what we can do is just message those doubts to me. ठीक है? Message मतलब आपका CR, your class rep Priyanshu is there, and you can just make a compact list of your doubts, and then I can maybe reply back on one of the days. ठीक है? ठीक है? Okay, guys, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you, बच्चे. Go back and read Ghai. ठीक है? Go back and read Ghai. Okay, beta. Okay. Okay. Stay safe. Bye bye.